I'm really looking forward to this week's session for obvious reasons. Um, and I noted, I want to say a few words for those persons who haven't been on these calls. I want to give a little bit of a background because we are kind of making this up as we go. Today, I want to say that it's been 49 days, exactly 7 weeks, at least at the Shaner household, where we have been sheltered in place. And so we've had 7 weeks really to kind of experiment with this idea that we're on retreat. We now have an opportunity to train 24/7. So like I always like to say, your life is your monastery. So we decided to say, all right, we're in this new situation. How can this be a training tool for all of us? And I said, my idea is let's just go back to the basics. So for those who weren't around, I said, let's go back to Toi Sensei's Key in Daily Life, that classic work. And specifically, I said, let's look at the very beginning of the second half, which is how to live your life according to key principles. And the first sessions, remember, the first chapters are getting up, sleep, and the subconscious. And we were discussing the subconscious, and then David Bosch said, in reading that chapter on the subconscious, Toi Sensei is talking about all these different minds. So we tried to tackle that, and we took a deeper dive into the chapter on the subconscious. And I just want to remind you of something here, that from Toi Sensei, this is his diagram in the chapter, but the obvious thing you get that we've been talking about the last couple of weeks is that your consciousness is directed, kind of like from in here in your head, you're the subject, to the external world, the object. And Toi Sensei is saying, we need to take responsibility for our subconscious mind when we train, as well as our conscious mind, because our subconscious mind is affecting our behaviors every day to a significant extent. So that led us to a more detailed conversation of intentionality, various ways to direct your mind. And so we have third order body mind awareness that will be referred to today, which is the most complicated form. It's how you are every day, 99.9% of the time. Your mind is just kind of around. When we train, we typically have the opportunity to singularly focus our attention over time. And as we all know, it helps if that object of concentration is dynamic, not static, something we covered last time as well. And then, of course, what would it be like to actually have an intentionless experience of the world? Well, last week, Terry Sensei did a great job kind of exploring his reflections. This is called reflexivity. So Patrick last week was doing this. This week, Ileana will be doing the same. And that's what Toi Sensei did. He had to reflect on his own experience and then help us to understand how can he create conditions for us to experience the world the way he was experiencing the world. Well, last week, Patrick reminded us, I'm just going to talk about one simple example of that kitchen table, that, as Kaicho Shinichi Tohei Sensei teaches us, if you can experience the difference while we're training, then you can self-correct. So essentially, we're saying we have 24/7 opportunities to self-correct as we're going through this very unusual time in human history. So Patrick said, well, here's a simple example, the kitchen table. When I'm under stress, it's the end of the day, all I see, I have a narrow focus, shujaku. I have a narrow focus, and all I see is the tabletop and the faces of my children and my spouse. But the point is when he recognized that, now he can use his training of learning to relax, keep one point, and then immediately his field of vision, his periphery expands. So that was last week. He also mentioned how that applies in key breathing. Then I thought of another one this week. Those of you who were in Las Vegas with Kaicho, Shinichi Tohei Sensei, he was sharing an example of working with one of the pitchers of the Los Angeles Dodgers, who was really struggling with this tunnel vision. And Shinichi Sensei was teaching us how he was helping him to have this kakudai ho, to expand his periphery, to help his balance and his agility on the mound, rather than having just singular tunnel vision. So that's the same principle that we're talking about. And then this week I was talking to Harold Sensei about this. He said, oh, you know what? It applies to Otomo training too. So imagine when you're a brand new Otomo, like the Kaisho of Otomo. Your mind is really busy. You've got so many directives. You don't want to be late. You want to do a good job. And all of that is causing you to have tunnel vision, such that your job as an Otomo to be like super aware, that's not helping. So one of the things that we do in the Eastern Ki Federation is I always tell people, you know what? Tell everyone in your dojo to think and act like an Otomo. You know, let's be the wind at the back of the Otomo so that they can relax. If they know that everyone's watching that person and are ready to pitch in, grab a hakama, grab an eraser, get a whiteboard, whatever is needed ASAP, that helps the Otomo to calm down. Then they can get rhythm. That's like the gyosho of Otomo training. Anyway, it applies to everything. So today, it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, because we're going to have an opportunity to take another deep dive at this. Specifically, as you know, I'm going to introduce my wife and my partner in parenting and my best friend, Ileana Posada-Shaner. She's going to share with us how these three orders of body-mind awareness can help be a developmental tool, in her case, training and developing as a concert pianist. And I think she's even going to draw upon the notions of kaisho, gyosho, and sosho as well. So if you'll permit me to take a few minutes, I'd really like to do an adequate introduction so that you can understand just this extensive experience that Ileana has. And I'm so fortunate to be her spouse. So let me just read this, if you don't mind. Ileana Posada-Shaner began studying piano at the age of 11. She received her Bachelor of Arts and Master of Arts from the University of Virginia, where she studied piano with Marjorie Mitchell and Tanis Gibson. And she played varsity athletics, lacrosse, at this Division I school, the University of Virginia. She continued her education at the University of Maryland, where she completed a second master's degree, and this time in piano performance as a full fellow. In 1992, she was awarded a fellowship for the Doctor of Musical Arts program at the University of Maryland before making her way to Greenville, where she has lived since 1993. Ileana continued studying piano performance with Ann Shelney, Eamon Hansen in Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts until 2017. Ileana has performed with the Brevard Music Center Orchestra and the University of Virginia's Camerata Rotunda. She has played solo and chamber music recitals in the Southeastern United States and has served on the piano faculty and collaborative piano staff at Furman University. In addition, Ileana has collaborated with the Carolina Ballet Theater, performing such works as Rachmaninoff's Rhapsody on a theme of Paganini and Preludes Opus 23. During her studies at the University of Maryland, Ileana's desire for personal growth and continued performance improvement in music led her to Ki Aikido. Fortunately, her roommate, Joy Hughes, a Furman graduate and graduate of the Furman Ki Aikido Club, was her roommate at the University of Maryland, and Joy started a class, a Ki class for musicians that Ileana attended. And Ileana has been studying Ki Aikido since then for the last 27 years. In 1996, she and Eric Carroll. In 2000, Ileana began practicing yoga, and in 2015, completed her registered yoga teacher 200 training. It is through Aikido movement, key development exercises, breathing and meditation, yoga, and creative artistry that Ileana encourages her students to discover their natural potential. And now I'm going to turn it over to my better half. But why do I say better half? Because I have experiential verification. Every time I go to a seminar and I greet the students on the first day, they go, "Hey, Sensei, how are you? By the way, did Ileana join you on this time?" And if I said, "No, she's busy, she's preparing for a concert to the kids," then people like this, "Oh, okay, well, we'll enjoy you anyway." And then if I say, "Yes, she's changing right now, she joined me," they go, "Great, this is gonna be so great." So if you put yourself in my shoes, I'm just saying, I'm turning it over to my better half. So Ileana, go for it.
Thank you very much, Shainer Sensei. And as you know, we are a mirror for each other, so I guess it's just your own mirror of your good half. I want to thank you all for being here this evening and spending this hour giving me the opportunity to share with you the 3 orders of body-mind awareness as it relates to my experience learning and performing solo piano music. And I would like to share with you a story that gave rise to a project that I completed throughout the year 2018, relate my process to the 3 orders, and then share with you the kigatsukus that came from that project of many months, which I will begin to relate to you now. So I've always known that there was a disconnect between how people perceive my playing and how I perceive my playing. And this became glaringly evident at a performance at the Woodlands at Furman in February of 2018, where I played the first full-length recital that I had played in many years. Now let me explain that the Woodlands at Furman is a retirement community that backs up to Furman University campus. Many of the residents there are friends of ours, retirees from Furman, and as many places today, there is the opportunity for you to go there in full health and shift through different phases of your development in that phase of life. So I say that so that you can understand this is a very welcoming and warm audience. They are not a critical audience, although very sophisticated. And in fact, one of the members was the principal clarinetist for the Metropolitan Opera, Symphony of the Metropolitan Opera. And so I spent about 9 months to a year putting together a recital of some new music, as well as music that I had learned in the past that I resurrected. So after this first performance at the Woodlands in February of 2018, I felt the familiar sting of disappointment immediately when I finished playing. First of all, through my performance, I was having some memory slips, some technical issues that kind of only show up during the stress of performance that weren't normally there. Things that happen out of the ordinary that show up as they always do in performance that really rattled my mind, and I doubted my key training and all my practice, like why isn't it coming together? Why is this the way it is? And so I was really disappointed. And after the concert, I was met with all these lovely people who had really sincere compliments and feedback, and were basically telling me all the things that I really would like to hear after a performance, but I couldn't receive them. Like there was this block right here in front of my heart that I could hear them, and I believed that they were telling me the truth, but there was like a separation, a gap between their reality and mine. And I would say this moment was kind of akin to Patrick's noticing at the dinner table that he had kind of 2 different states of third order awareness where he was either super narrowly focused and just eating his dinner so he could get out of there, or trying to control everybody else to come to him. So I feel that this awareness was sort of the same situation that got me thinking, I wonder what it's like for Yo-Yo Ma or Pavarotti or Placido Domingo or myriad of musicians who perform so many concerts a year. What is it like for them to perform the same concerto or opera or recital like? So I decided to set the same program so that I could experience for myself what kind of changes might come about if I put myself in the hot seat, the uncomfortable situation of performing, which I'm obviously drawn to do, but it's also perilous and uncomfortable and terrifying. But that sort of set the stage for this project that I decided I wanted to embark upon. So over the next 8 months, I created 9 more performances of the same program. And I played for several retirement homes in South Carolina, concerts at my colleagues' homes and my homes for groups of friends, Furman University, the Osher Lifelong Institute of Learning, the Governor's School, and a church benefit concert for the church where I attend in Greenville, St. James. And this rich experience brought to light many kigatsukus, or aha moments, or insights, awakenings that I want to share with you. But before I get to the end of all those concerts, I wanted to explain what my process is like, and when I look back at it, how I can describe it through the 3 orders of body-mind awareness that Shinner Sensei wrote about in the Body-Mind Experience and Living with the Wind at Your Back. So first, third order, as Patrick described last week, is like monkey mind, or constantly jumping from one thought to the next. It's not, you don't have a felt sense of connection with the universe and all that's in it. Instead, it's the state of mind that we're in when we're doing most of our daily life, driving from here to there, taking care of our responsibilities, fulfilling all the different roles in daily life that we do. And so this is third order. And as Patrick learned when we said, as Patrick shared, when we learn anything new, we tend to focus our mind on many specific things that it's a lot of information to learn. Let's pay attention to the mechanics. We exhale fully through the mouth, making the sound of ha. Leaving the mouth open, then tip forward, gently close the lips, breathe in through the nose, relax the shoulders, don't let the shoulders keep one point, expanding, gently come back to center without closing the throat, exhale through the mouth. So we go through this process as we're learning key breathing, which is necessary in order to move, in order to gain the benefits of key breathing. So Suzuki Sensei told me, you can't skip steps. And of course, you can't skip the beginning step of beginning. So I'd like to show you, so on a musical score, there's a lot of information. Basically, it's a page filled with a whole different language of dots and lines and spaces, white and black. It's got so much information on it, from the note values to the time signature, rhythm, character, tempo, changes in all of those things. It gives me the key area that I know I'm working with, which for musicians gives you a certain is different expectations based on what that key is. So this first part of the process, the kaisho, is very long. There's a lot of information there. And once I get familiar with a piece after dissecting all this information, so in addition to all that's written there, I myself also write notes all over the music, explaining the theory, explaining the harmonic functions to myself, clarifying it. This is simply a matter of clarification. We murder to dissect, as Shainer Sensei it says at the opening of the body-mind experience. And this is exactly what I'm doing at this point, tearing it apart and understanding how it's put together, both in form, harmony, melody, voicing, all this information that is included in the roadmap of the score. So after I've deciphered quite a bit of the information, little by little, every day, repeating my practice steadily, then I begin to use the 5 principles of Kaisho for figuring out these passages that are difficult. I zero in on places that cause me trouble or are temporarily seem more difficult than others, and I figure out where is the bump? What is making this difficult? How can I move around this passage to make it more natural? How can I move to make it easier? How can I think about it to make it easier? My 2 teachers that David just mentioned that I studied with at the University of Maryland and over the past 10 years until they both left this earth, they're Raymond Hansen and Ann Koscielny. Raymond Hansen told me, never play anything faster than you can play it with ease. And as I understand the process of learning more and more deeply through Aikido, I realized that if we're practicing in a way that's unnatural or scary or brings tension, then we're incorporating that into the neural pathways that I'm trying to burn in the brain to get a smooth and easy performance. So he would have me leave out notes as I'm learning things. Just learn the general line of something. Make it easy for yourself. Then, as you begin to feel that ease, add in the other things that are, making it difficult little by little. And in that way, you are developing the sense of ease as well as all the technical things that are on the page. Anne, his wife, also suggested practicing and making a game out of it. She, who was an amazing technician and she could play anything and had a vast repertoire, all stored up here. She would say, make a game of it. All you have to do is figure out how to do it, she would say. So it was like a puzzle for her. It was a game. Instead of just drilling something over and over and over, hoping for a different result, she would say, change the way you practice. See if you can figure out a different way to do it. Try playing it backwards. Try leaving out some notes. So both of these were really innovative to me because I tend to try to just, if it's not coming, it's because I haven't practiced enough. So I would just try to repeat, repeat, repeat. Well, then that also ingrains whatever's happening more deeply. So back to the score. Once I've deciphered the challenging passages and worked on understanding all the theory, I'm still in the Kaisho phase, basic. But little by little, I'm starting to make a transition from third order to second order. I practice into my learning. Oh, relax. Keep weight on the underside. I figure out what is it that helps, what thought helps me make this easier here. And then I use it and I practice working it in to my neural pathways that is being developed to be able to play this piece. The interesting part to me is that the gaps between practice sessions um, are really instrumental. There's some kind of magic that happens during the time that you're not practicing. But of course, that only happens if it's flanked on both sides by practice sessions. So the practice, the steady practice in earnest has to keep happening. But undoubtedly, you come back the next day. Oh, this is a little more familiar. No, this is a little easier today. For me, this is analogous to gyosho. What is the rhythm? Key movement with form. This is a more fluid process now. So even with the music, after having deciphered all this and picked it apart, then I'm slowly now being able to play this piece more fluidly from start to finish. Maybe there's some bumpy places along the way that I focus on and figure out in the method that I've already explained. So music is a perfect meditation because it's moving. There's a beginning and an end and a path to get there. So it's very much like keep breathing or meditation or meditating on a mandala or a mudra or all the many ways that there are to focus your mind. So now, still reading the music, much of it is learned. And as Terry Sensei mentioned, my awareness has expanded. Now I'm playing the piece with the music, but I'm information page that's coming in almost like my bandwidth has expanded. And there's less singular pointed focus. It's a broader looking at seeing the page and all this information coming, as opposed to looking at each measure and what's inside of it. Now with this flow, I have to consciously check in with my emotions, because as the music begins to flow more, there's emotional change that happens, excitement that happens in the music. And this takes practice to hold your focus and experience that excitement and changes in the body state at the same time and not get derailed, because it can be derailing. So at this point now, in a more deep second order, do I understand it? Do I know it? Do I know what's going on theoretically? Yes. Okay, let's check the right hand. Then together. And this whole process through the whole piece. And then, can I start at different places? Because if you learn it from beginning to end and only practice beginning to end, then you have to start at the beginning every time if there's a snafu. Well, that won't do. So I make sure there are many different places that I can start, so I really understand this piece of music. Um, as Terry Sensei described last week when explaining first order, intentionality falls away. Toi Sensei describes it in the key breathing shokushu. You feel that you are the universe and the universe is you. There's no separation. In my practice room, when I've understood thoroughly to the best of my ability, I can't really explain the feeling of playing. Rather, when I get disturbed and I come out of first order, that's when I recognize it. So I might be lost in the music, not really experiencing anything. I did sit to begin to play, and then I'm playing, and there's suddenly no time or space or separation of anything, or it's just sort of a state of being. I'm just being. Suddenly, if I'm distracted and I come out of that state, then that's when, because now I'm having these thoughts and I realize, oh my God, where am I? It's like a dimension shift. It's like something just suddenly happened that shifted me out of that dimension where I was to a new place, and I have an awareness of it. So I would say that for me, more than noticing first order, I notice when I come out of it. And in performance, this is very disconcerting. So the next level of the key test for me is performing the piece. Because we all know through our own practice of Ki Aikido when we're preparing for a test and we perform the test in the dojo time and time again, whether it's a key test or an Aikido test, it feels really different than when you're actually doing it in front of uh, Kaito sensei or Shainer sensei or whoever your sensei is that's testing you. Suddenly you feel very self-conscious. Your awareness is all on yourself. It's a really different feeling. So I practice this by practicing first for my friends and family, and then get used to those things that are going to happen so that I can just experience the feel of it and get a little know-how on where are these problem spots? Where am I likely to have a break in concentration? So what I came to that night in February of 2018 was that the way I was going to improve my sense of accomplishment and performance was to create more performance opportunities for myself with this same program, because I felt like that was imperative. I wanted to experience it with the same music, so I'm not constantly having to digest new music. And throughout the course of those 10 recitals, I had really awesome experiences and awakenings. I did notice my awareness expand. As I was in performance, I'd hear someone's cell phone ring or coins fall out of their pocket and roll all the way down to the bottom of the auditorium. But these were not disturbing in any way. I just noticed that they were there, but it was okay. Or I would have a memory slip, but I could continue without hesitation until I realized where I was and where I was going. And often, as I mentioned, this happened when I was slipping out of first order into second order. I also developed more keenly the ability to stay in the now. So one thing that's really disconcerting when you're performing is if you make a mistake and the music continues, you should go with it mentally, but you're sitting there thinking, oh man, I wish I hadn't played that wrong note, or I can't believe I did that. That never happens. Why did that happen? This is all very distracting. So over the course of the 10 recitals of this same group, it was a fear closes the door on creativity. So he would tell me, don't be scared when you have a memory slip. Well, it's one thing to say, don't be scared. And it's another thing not to be scared. But it just takes practice. And what another thing I learned over these 10 concerts, they always happen. And there's no predicting when or where they're going to happen. It's like driving from here to downtown Greenville. I don't know what cars I'm going to pass and what kind of traffic there's going to be. I can't predict any of that. And in the same way, I can't predict how a performance is going to go. The best I can do is my best, stay focused, and practice what I practice, only in a new environment. My mental agility improved. So just as in meditation, there is only the here and now, and we're focused on the breath, or we're focused on expansion and contraction. And what do we do when we have a thought? As soon as we realize the thought, oh, we come back. We come back to our expansion and contraction, or come back to the breath, or come back to the mantra, or come back to the mandala. We come back to our point of focus. And finally, the memory slips actually, or technical difficulties that came up in performance under pressured situations, also gave me a focus for my practice in the practice room. Oh, okay, I need more clarity of mind here. Because if I have a memory slip here, then I must not really understand what's happening. So this, either harmonically or figuratively, whatever's going on there, it just needs more attention so that I can clarify, because mind leads body. So if there's a bump, it's because I'm not clear there. So that was really, all of these were really helpful skills that became ingrained. I've since performed, many recitals with music accompanying others. And while the process is different and the score is still there, of course, there's many carryovers. And so this ability just to stay more present and to go with the flow really improved and really helped the performance as well as my ability to enjoy it. So that familiar sting of disappointment, shoga, small self, the perfectionism that was keeping me from being able to accept other people's positive feedback and enjoy my practice and learning, um, I was really able to give that up and to let it go and to slide more into taiga, my large self, and all the amazing things that come together in a performance. The many people who come to listen, all my friends and family and people I don't know, and the ability to share music from people who are long dead and gone. And without the performer, these pieces would be dead. There would be no classical music. And actually, classical music is declining around the US for financial reasons. But playing is actually the art of service. It's giving people an opportunity to commune in a language that doesn't have words. I hear it all the time. You made me feel the breadth of my emotions and and join in sharing the human experience. So the collaboration that came about in putting on these concerts was also awesome and empowered me as collaborating with others always does. And finally, extend key doesn't mean how well am I doing or um, do people like it. It simply means send your mind where you want to go and then go in that direction. And doing that is really key in daily life. This is allowing more enjoyment and expansion and just general pleasure and respect for my process and joy of sharing music. Would like to share with you a taste of that piece that I was telling you about, Beethoven Opus 9, from the recital that I performed at my church on May 18th. Thank you. Terry Sensei, you want to take it back over?
Yes, thank you very much. That was just wonderful. We're now moving into the Q&A section, so I'm seeing some things come in. Most of them are comments of wonderful, which I completely agree with. If anybody has a question, please let me know. You can write a comment. And if not, I will defer to one of the other senseis in the group, who is also a musician. Steve Wolf, if you could, we would love to hear just any comments you have on your experience with both your yoga teaching and also doing jazz bass playing.
That's a tough act to follow right there.
It is.
That was great. Also, that's an awesome piece of music too.
Thank you.
I've heard that one before. A lot of things that Ileana Sensei was saying resonate with what I do as well. When I'm backing a singer, for example, you're basically in the atomo role, and that I do a lot of shows that come through town. For example, I backed the Marvelettes a couple of years back, the old soul band from the 60s, and they gave us a recording of the show, and they said, learn this, and we went in. There was no rehearsal, there was no anything, and I had done my homework on that and quickly realized that I was anchoring this thing. And so she and I developed this eye contact. We never said a word before the show or after she got back on the bus, but during the show, we had to be connected, and you had to be in the moment, just like the atomo role that we all learn about. So there's that side of it. There's also, and even good, American roots music, rock and roll and stuff, when you can really get everybody in the zone together and get connected to the audience in the same way. There's definitely, that magic that happens in the room that Shainer Sensei was talking about. And then you're back to the second order consciousness for a while. There's also the sense of that, if you're focused on yourself, like when doing Taigi or Rondori, you're going to miss the big picture. And in playing an ensemble, you have to let go of yourself. I have to, as a bass player, I usually connect first with the drummer and make sure we're on the same page. And you have to really listen to the drummer. You don't listen to yourself in relation to the drummer. You listen to the drummer, and you go to, at the same time, you're reacting to the soloists and the singers or whatever else is going on in the moment. And when you're playing jazz, you have the additional thing that every once in a while, working with certain piano players, they'll reharmonize the tune. And if you know the basic structure and music theory, you can follow it. And you have to be able to hear that. You have to really let go in those situations. I was at this club quite a few years ago playing with this band, and the opening act was a legendary jazz guitar player named Lenny Breau, and was invited to sit in with us during the main show. And so he called Misty, which is a jazz standard. I'm going, I got this, And then he says key of C, but the song is in E flat. So all of a sudden, I'm in a room full of people, and it's a guitar player show. Most of the acts were guitar players. And I'm looking under the table, and there's all these little red lights of the cassette players that all the people are recording. So I got a house full of musicians. I got great musicians on stage, and I have to play this song that I've never played before, key of C, which has a lot of chord changes. There's a lot to the song, and you really have to let go of everything and be in the moment and use your senses and your intuition. You've got to completely focus on the music and just let go of all of it, just like being on the pitcher's mound or being the quarterback after the word hike. And you see these 300-pound guys running at you, and at the same time, you have to see the whole field of play, and stay centered and stay grounded if you expect to deliver the ball where it's supposed to go at all. And it's that kind of an experience. The producer of the show just begged him, "You've got to go on." And so he went in there, and apparently a lot of the mutes for some of the strings weren't working right, and he kind of doctored the piano. And apparently the hammers were really hard and way past their prime in the piano. So it was like a brilliant sound that was, edgy in a way that he couldn't have the control that he would usually have using the pedal. And so he went up there and connected with this huge audience, and somehow it became one of the greatest jazz records in the history of jazz, because he was able to let go of all of his expectations, and he used those things which would have been a disaster as tools to make some great music. And I really think that, that's the lesson that we're trying to learn as Aikido as a whole. I'll make a couple quick comments about yoga since you asked about that, but to me, it's all the same practice. The values are the same. You have ahimsa at the core in yoga and in Aikido, non-harming. That applies to yourself as well as to your partner on the mat, as also to your students if you're a yoga teacher. And hopefully you can do that, a life of loving kindness as you move through life as well. I think that's one of the big lessons that Tohei Sensei Senior was trying to impart before he left. You also mentioned the breathing, Shainer Sensei. You have to be able to, the breath in yoga really is used as kind of an indicator as to the state of your being. Are you really relaxed? Are you really in the zone? The breath will always tell you. And it took me a long time to figure out that that's what key breathing is supposed to be about too. And that's why we practice. So pranayama is one of the most important parts of yoga practice. It tends to get short shrift in America because everybody likes the physical exercises of yoga, and I do too. But what makes it yoga actually is the combination of movement and breath. Because without that, it's not really yoga, it's just calisthenics. And I've even, when I used to do heavy duty bicycling and club riding, they'd say if you can talk and ride and not be out of breath, you're probably riding at a good pace. In other words, can you breathe well? Are you breathing well? And that's really key to it. Sometimes, when things get intense, like key in Randori, I think we take a breath. Oh, the guy need Ray, and that's the last breath you take, and you run around, and you breathe again when it's all over. But it's important, to stay relaxed and stay in the breath, and stay grounded and stay centered through all of that. So there's a lot of common ground in all of this. Anyway, I hope that gives some perspective.
We've got some technical difficulty, which was the going back and forth with Terry Sensei and Freiling Sensei, but we're up against 6 o'clock. And so I think we're up to the full hour. So maybe I'll just close and say, first of all, Wolf Sensei, anyone, if you ever have a chance to hear Ileana perform live and Wolf Sensei perform live, it is a treat. I love jazz music, and I love just watching Steve when he talks about how he's like, you know, laying down the bass with all these people. It's just an amazing thing. It's during a seminar usually, and people want to go home, and I'm like, wait, I want to stay. I want to stay. No, Sensei, we got to go train. Anyway, and you heard a little bit of Ileana's piece there, 4 minutes, and just imagine. I mean, I can tell you, to prepare a piece like that from memory, it's like a 9-month process. So it just blows my mind that people like yourself, Steve, and Ileana, and other great musicians can pull this off. It's amazing. So on that note of thanks, I'm not sure what happened to our technical support, but in any event, I'm going to sign off.
Yep, please go ahead.
And I'm just signing off. It's because it's after 6. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.